Okay, episode 2 of season 2 of Vinland Saga, spoiler alert. It was a slow episode. It's weird seeing an episode of Vinland Saga where nobody died, other than a flashback to Agnar's mom and sister. It was just kind of setting up Agnar and Thorfinn's life with their master. The first thing they really talk about in the episode is the master explaining that Agnar can buy his freedom from him, which Agnar was thrilled about. He couldn't believe it. So the master explained to him how he could buy his freedom, told him it could be as soon as 3 years. And then he left him with Thorfinn to start learning what they needed to do. And he wasn't as excited when he found out how much work there was. As this grove of trees that they have to clear. There's quite a few trees, and Agnar is not great with an axe. Thorfinn's supposed to be teaching him the way, so it just kind of showed them, cutting down the tree, dragging logs. There was a scene where they were brought lunch by farmhands who ate most of their lunch. Agnar was ready to fight them. Thorfinn stepped in very calmly. They were demanding that Agnar thank them, and Agnar was not going for it. And Thorfinn stepped in, took the lunch, and thanked them. So Agnar was really angry about it. He's talking a lot, and Thorfinn is barely talking. At first, I didn't think Thorfinn was going to say anything to him at all, and then he ends up saying a little bit. He talks to him a little bit, but Agnar is mad, and he wants to report these farmhands. He goes, the master is coming along on his horse, and Agnar goes up to the master, even though Thorfinn tries to stop him. Agnar goes up to the master to report the farmhands and sees what looks like, I don't know if it was the daughter of the master or someone else who works for him, or another slave, I don't know, but it looks like it might have been his daughter. He sees the young lady, and he's mesmerized by her, and he doesn't say anything. And they kind of leave it there, so we'll see what happens. The next day, you see them in a wheat field, cutting and moving wheat, stacking wheat. And the master is there working with them, and Agnar is, surprised, seems to be impressed that the master's actually working alongside his slaves and his farmhands. Agnar alludes to the fact that where he's from, I know that England, the masters don't work with their slaves. They don't get to buy their freedom. They're not treated as well. So anyway, you go to the master, and he's having an argument with someone who turns out to be his son, who's like this little whiny brat. He's trying to teach him how to cut the wheat. And, they're going out of their way to show how magnanimous this master is. He's like, you need to cut the wheat at a certain height, so that when the animals come through, they can graze, they can have food to eat. The kid doesn't care. He curses out his dad and runs off. The next time you see him, he's complaining. He's in this hut with his shirt off, wielding his sword, talking about being, going and joining Canute's army. This is the first time Canute's mentioned in season 2. Prince Canute, or King Canute, I'm sorry, he's king now. But at any rate, he's talking about joining the army and, making a name for himself. Talking to a young lady that obviously he just had sex with or whatever. She's sitting there half covered, but obviously has no clothes on. And she talks about being worried about him and basically tells him, hey, let's have sex again. This is where it gets crazy, because outside the door, her father is listening in and is egging her on silently, or, she can't hear him, but he's excited because basically the father and the mother want the daughter to endear herself to this guy so that their futures can be secure. Ick. Anyway, I know things like that happened, and even happened today, but it's disgusting to, basically whore your daughter out so that you can make a living for yourself. But at any rate, the prince, the next time, so the prince is in the hut, And she's like, hey, let's have sex again. And the next time you see it, the prince is coming out fully clothed and running off. And he's basically yelling to the family, I know what y'all are doing. You're not going to make money off of my name. And he goes off yelling about how all the women are the same. And he's really upset. He's just trying to find his way in life. Even though he is a spoiled brat. And then two drunk, what I think are farmhands, come up to him, who are clearly, friends with him at they have some kind of relationship with him. Because they come over to him, they're stumbling drunk. One of them can barely walk, and the other one's kind of helping the other one, but they're both really, really drunk. And basically they're like, hey, forget about all this stuff, come have a drink with us. That's how that scene ends. And then the very end of the show, this episode, you hear Agnar and Thorfinn talking, and basically Agnar tells Thorfinn the story of his village being burned down. The first time his village was burned down, his father was killed fighting the invaders off. And of course, he was a kid, and he couldn't do anything about it. Then he rebuilt the village, got burned down again. And of course, is where episode 1 started, where his mom and his sister are killed. So he's like, all, warriors are animals, and anybody who chooses war is an animal in human skin or something like that, he says. And Thorfinn's listening, and of course, and they're laying down in hay, going to sleep. This is like where they sleep. And Thorfinn kind of just turns over and he's listening to him, pretending he's asleep. But you can see the look in his eyes. Obviously, Thorfinn is a warrior on the next level. So he's thinking about all this, and I'm sure it's making him feel some kind of way. The one thing I kept thinking about, because there's scenes where Agnar's yelling at Thorfinn. There's one scene where he grabs him, and he's in his face. And the only thing I can think about is, man, if this had been a season ago, Agnar would be dead. But clearly Thorfinn has turned over a new leaf. Agnar has no idea the level warrior that he is grabbing on. If he did, he wouldn't mess with him, obviously. So this episode was kind of slow. But it was a good setup episode. You get to learn some things, get to see the Master's son. I don't know how much he's going to be involved. I noticed he's in the artwork for Vinland Saga, like some of the stills you see the son with the wheat in his mouth, and this is a scene. So I don't know, it seems like he might be prominent going forward. It's going to be interesting to see how Agnar responds when he finds out that Thorfinn is a great warrior. And we still don't know. It's never been made clear how Thorfinn got to the Master. So that's what I'm curious about above all else. The season 1 ended with Thorfinn being held by the guards of Prince Canute, screaming, looking at Askeladd's dead body while the prince stood there. And then you come into this one where he's working for this guy who's been sold as a slave. So, what happened? What got him there? Plus, Agnar hasn't mentioned that he met someone who was looking for Thorfinn. I don't know if he's forgotten it at this point, but it'd be interesting to see how Thorfinn responds when he hears about that. Anyway, solid episode. Kind of slow. Nice not to see so much blood. Looking forward to episode 3.